Listen, y'all been in my inbox asking when I'm coming back? Well, guess what? I'm back. Landlord and Tenant Talk Uncensored is now live every Monday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on my YouTube channel, my Facebook page, as well as TikTok. So grab your pencil, your paper, and your sippy cup, because I'm spilling the tea and nothing is off limits. We're talking about security deposits, inspections, housing programs, bad tenants, slum landlords, late rent, and yeah, we're talking about retaliation. We're also talking about how to fix it all without losing your mind. I'm calling it like it is, no fluff, no fake advice, just the truth landlords and tenants need to hear. So whether you own the building or you pay to stay in it, this weekly live is for you. Welcome, everybody. Happy Marvelous Monday. I hope that you are well. Good evening for those of you who are tuned in live. Thank you for joining me today for the Landlord and Tenant Talk Live. I'm Karissa Spann, your host. For those who I am, maybe you're new to my channel, you're just tuning in for the first time, I'm excited to have you join me on today. I'm live every Monday right here. I'm live on Facebook. I'm live on LinkedIn, and I am also live on YouTube. I'm glad that you're joining me today. And again, if you're watching the replay, welcome and thank you. For those of you who are joining me on Facebook or LinkedIn, please make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. There you can find me at Landlord Live. Each week is a different topic. You can go and watch the replays. And if you find this information that I'm sharing today or any of my former segments that I've shared, please also like, comment, and share it with someone else. Okay? Who this show is for? This show is for landlords, it's for property owners, property managers, and housing providers. It's for tenants who want stability and understanding. It's also for anyone looking to navigate rental housing in real life and not theory. So, best believe that this is not gossip. This is not surface level advice. This is education. It's all about providing truth and also some strategies. But before I go another further, let me also share this because sometimes I get messages in my inbox. Thank you for your text message, where people are asking for legal advice. Okay, this is for educational purposes only. Nothing that I share today should be considered legal advice. Housing laws do vary by state, it varies by location, so I will always highly recommend that you consult with a qualified attorney or housing professional regarding to legal matters specific to your situations. All right. I see your comment coming in. Thank you so much. So today's conversation, I promise, is going to make somebody uncomfortable. But you know what? That's intentional. Because here's the thing. When it comes to housing, growth doesn't happen through feelings. It happens through clarity. It happens through accountability. And it happens through systems. And I've been fortunate and honored to be in this industry for well over 20 plus years in various roles and capacities, from a licensed property manager to an asset manager, housing educator, as well as a housing provider myself. So listen, I'm going to share information. This topic today is all about understanding what actually creates stability between housing, in the rental housing community, between landlords and tenants. So it's not about what sounds good on social media. I mean, because if we're honest, there are a lot of things floating in, on, and around social media. But I promise that if we just stay focused on what the main thing is, we'll be okay. All right. So the first thing that I do want to share is this. Effective communication and trust is going to be the biggest um, hard truth that I address on today. So if you have questions, comments, remarks, or observations, please throw it in the comment section. I have comments coming in, I have text messages coming in, and I promise I am going to respond to it all. But let me pause. Let me know where you're tuned in from. If this is your first time, let me know this is your first time. If you're watching the replay, go ahead and drop the hashtag replay because I do respond to your comments, especially on LinkedIn and YouTube. So go ahead and show me some love. Do me that favor. If my audio goes out, if at any time you want to jump in, ask a question, or ask me to repeat something, please by all means do so because I want to make sure that I address all of your concerns, all of your questions while I am live in real time. All right, so today's segment is all about effective communication and trust, okay? And I want you to know this. When it comes to housing, I promise that being nice is not always the ideal thing for business. Now, I'm not saying that you must be mean, but the question that I pose today, which is my topic question, does being nice actually hurt landlords and tenants? So that's what I'm going to address on today. All right, so let me get right into it. I thank you so much for your comments coming in. Landlords should keep things on a professional basis with their tenants. They should not put up with excuses when the rent is late. I love that, Nancy. Thank you so much for tuning in from Texas. And you are watching for the first time on YouTube. Thank you so much. All right, I see the comments coming in from the YouTube channel as well as LinkedIn. Hey, Red Carpet, welcome, 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 welcome back. But you know what? Let me go back to this comment. Nancy, you said landlords should keep things on a professional level. Listen, that's so true. And oftentimes, one of the biggest mistakes I've seen in the industry is when landlords, they don't keep it professional. We understand, those of us who are housing providers, whether we are accidental landlords or this was, I like to use a terminology for those of us who are parents and we plan pregnancies, right? There were housing providers and landlords who planned to get into this industry, right? But then there were some accidental landlords. But nonetheless, when tenants do get into the habit of making late payments, it is always the best thing to do when it comes to being a professional is to keep it professional because it's not a hobby, right? This is not a side time or a side gig, right? One of the things that I will share often is my philosophy that if you treat it like a business, it is going to pay you like a business. But when you treat it like a hobby or you wear your feelings and your emotions on your sleeve, then you usually will get the results based off of that behavior and that action. And so thank you so much for that, Nancy. So let's listen. Let's get straight into it because I do have a lot to share and I do not want to hold you long on today. And then also stick around. I have a segment that I do like to share. It's one of my favorite things to do, and this is called Truth or Trash. So, with Truth or Trash, I'm going to give you a statement or ask a question, and then you let me know if you think it's truth or trash. But here's the thing, when it comes to effective communication, right? We know that for many of us, we know that communication without structure, it really creates confusion, right? And then also, going back to your statement, Nancy, when it comes to keeping it professional, I strongly believe that inconsistent communication destroys credibility, right? Because ultimately, we want to build trust. Trust is built through repetition. It's not built through promises because I know that many of us have heard it's not how you start a thing, it's how you finish. You can mean well and still end up doing bad, right? Or you can start out with not knowing and making mistakes, but still end up strong. But again, trust is built through repetition. So it's that thing that we do over and over and over again. And it's not just communication, it's in our actions. It's how we respond to tenants. It's how, as a tenant, how tenants communicate to landlords and housing providers, right? Systems are always the best thing to have in place. Systems are good because it protects both landlords as well as tenants. Now, one of the things that I do share with tenants, because I am a housing educator, I educate tenants as well. One of the things that I often tell tenants is this: silence always escalates problems, it never solves problems. So, go back to your comment, Nancy, about landlords staying professional. So, in that situation you shared about landlords staying professional even when tenants don't pay rent, right? So when it comes to tenants and you're delinquent or you know you're not going to pay your rent, it's always in your best interest to communicate with your landlord to let them know whatever the situation is, right? Because if you don't say something, the problem is not going to go away, right? So I know a housing provider who is currently dealing with a few tenants who have not paid their rent. Their rental property is in a jurisdiction that favors tenants, right? So there are a lot of tenant advocates, there are a lot of free legal attorneys who will represent tenants at no cost. Whereas for small housing providers and landlords, they may not have that assistance. They may not have the laws on their side, right? And so, in situations like that, where the tenants have not paid the rent, landlords or housing providers, they're struggling, they're trying to make ends meet, they're trying to avoid going to foreclosure because they cannot pay the mortgage, they can't pay the bills because tenants not only have they not paid the rent, but they've not communicated. It's not going to solve a problem if there's this dead silence, right? So being nice without being clear always or usually creates, let me just say this: being nice without being clear, there's a high chance that creates a liability. And then sometimes another problem is that over explaining after deadlines doesn't rebuild trust. So let's say, for instance, you're a housing provider, right? And you've missed a deadline. You told a tenant, listen, Mr. and Mrs. Tenant, I'm coming to make the repairs. We're sending pest control. You've complained about mice coming into your unit. You've complained about holes under the kitchen cabinet. You've complained about holes under the bathroom sink, right? And you've requested pest control services. We've told you that, we're going to send someone, and we apologize that the first time we didn't deliver through. We apologize the second time we didn't keep our word. We apologize that the third time the exterminator never showed up. We apologize that the fourth time, we couldn't get in because we didn't give you advance notice, right? And then you go through the process where you're over explaining after you have consistently missed deadlines. Listen, that is the most counterproductive way to build trust with tenants. Now, I like to go down the middle of the aisle here. I don't always take the side of landlords. I don't always take the side of tenants, because I'm a realist, and I'm real enough to know, understand, and communicate that all tenants are not bad seeds, and not all landlords are slum landlords. But when there are issues that need to be resolved, then let's look at the best way to resolve it, right? Because here's the thing: in housing, clarity is kindness, right? Being clear is how you should be kind. Being nice, oh, I'm going to take care of it, but you never do it, right? That's bad for business. And if you're a tenant and you're always promising, oh, I'm going to pay my rent, I'm gonna pay my rent and you never pay the rent, right? Let's say 3 months have gone by, you're nice and you're still lying about paying your rent. I mean, come on. Let's just call a spade a spade. That is just bad for business. And one of the things that I will say is this: for those of you who are tenants and you know you have to pay your rent by the first. If, for instance, what's today's date? It is February the 9th. You haven't paid your rent and you reach out to your landlord to say, hey, when is the rent due? You know, or you knew before you signed that lease that the rent is due on the first or whatever the due date is, right? Like, let's not play games with people, because the same way you will want people to pay you if you have a job, if you're getting TANF assistance, if you're getting any type of income, you're working a job, right? You expect to be paid on time so that you can pay your bills. It's no different. Landlords are the same way. And in many cases, landlords do have bills to pay. I promise that when there's a maintenance complaint, that landlord has to pay somebody to get that work completed. And there are things that I believe that sometimes tenants don't necessarily think about, because they just believe that, oh, well, my landlord, they should understand that I'm not paying my rent and I'll make it up later. Yeah, well, listen, if they have a mortgage to pay, if they have taxes to pay, if they have to pay for a maintenance person to come out, if they have to pay for the exterminator to get rid of mice or roaches or rats or whatever the issues are, they can't pay those contractors or vendors off of empty words and empty promises, right? And so this is why communication without structure creates confusion. I know that technology has changed how many housing providers do business. And if it has not, now's the time to really get on board, right? But so, for instance, in communities where housing providers allow tenants to text. Listen, let's say a tenant texts a maintenance issue at random hours, let's say 11 o'clock at night, and assumes that it's being handled because they sent the text message. I mean, yes, text communication is good, but there should also be a system in place. So let's say, for instance, let's use the scenario where a tenant texts their maintenance complaint 11 o'clock at night. Is there a system to follow up? Does this tenant know that office hours are whatever they are, and anything after that should be considered an emergency, right? And is there an emergency line versus just texting it at random hours? Because let's say, for instance, that 11 o'clock text message is overlooked and it's about maybe a light bulb going out in the refrigerator. Not to say that's not important, because especially if it's a senior, right? That's definitely important. But let's say this 11 o'clock text, the landlord saw it, it wasn't an emergency, and they had intentions on following up the next day. Something happened, they became so inundated with their schedule and so busy, they forgot to follow up. Day one. Now, 2 weeks later, they still have not followed up with this text message. You see why it's so important to have a system in place, right? Or let's just talk about the landlord who gives verbal approvals, right? But later doesn't remember agreeing to whatever they gave the approval about. Listen, this is why structure is important, because no one, and I will repeat, absolutely no one knows what's official anymore, right? Because times have changed, technology has changed. A lot of us are using and incorporating AI in our business and our day-to-day practice. And if you're not, I encourage you to do so, because it can definitely help streamline what you do. Now, when it comes to communication, understand and know that, I mean, ultimately, if there's structure in place, both sides should know how to communicate and understand the timeline in which they should get a response. Because if there isn't a defined way to communicate, whether it's by email, a tenant portal, written notice, I mean, basically everyone is operating off of memory, right? Listen, housing doesn't work off of memory, it works off of records. So while we are using systems and we have structure in place, make sure that it works. And if the system doesn't work, tweak it, revise it, and do it again. But here's another thing, and I want you to hear me on this for those of you who are looking to get into the residential rental space, right? Inconsistent communication can and will destroy your credibility. So let's say, for instance, there's a landlord who responds quickly sometimes and slowly other times. So there's this inconsistent pattern where for some things they're quick, they'll respond or reply back right away. And then with other things, they just kind of take their time and don't, if they do at all, right? You don't want to do that. That is not a strategy or best business practice that I would recommend. Or let's talk about the tenant who pays rent on time when it's convenient for them, and then they pay it late when they're stressed out. Listen, as a tenant, I would strongly recommend that you not do that, because I know that some housing providers and some landlords do have a heart, right? And I talk sometimes about professional tenants. A professional tenant is someone who knows the system, they understand the rules, the regulations, the laws better than some landlords, and they will use loopholes to their advantage to get what they want. Okay? That's a professional tenant. And so when you have these type of situations in play, it usually backfires on them. And so if you, again, if you are a tenant and you know you're having some issues, go ahead and be honest, be consistent, pay your rent, not just when it's convenient, but pay it on time, because that's how you also establish credibility with your landlord. Because see, here's the thing. I can work with a tenant who say, well, Karissa, listen, I know the rent is due on the first, but I don't get paid on time, or I have other bills that I do have to pay. I'm going to pay my rent. If it's okay that I pay it by the 6th or the 7th of the month, I'm going to pay the late fee. They say it, they do it, and it's consistent. I can rock with that versus someone who say, okay, well, I'm gonna pay it on the first. First come, the first is gone. Then the 14th is here. And I'm reaching out like, hey, have you forgotten your rent? Like, what's going on? What's your deal? Like, let me know. Haven't heard from you. It's the 14th of the month. We haven't received your rent. We haven't received your late payment. We've received no communication, right? I can rock with somebody who's going to be consistent, because, again, inconsistent communication will destroy credibility. Credibility, let me just say this, isn't about being liked. It's about being predictable. And when people don't know what to expect from you, they stop trusting you. All right. Now, trust is built through repetition. Trust is not built through promises. So I talked about the tenant who always promises, oh, I'm gonna pay next Friday again. Or how about the landlord who says, oh, I'll fix it next week. And it keeps happening again. Or for someone to say, oh, well, I apologize, this won't happen anymore. And they've said that again and again. Listen, at some point, you have to understand that words begin to lose value, because one of the things about housing is that, again, trust is earned by doing the same responsible thing over and over. It's not like the game of Monopoly. For those of you who've played Monopoly, that's one of the things that I love to. That's a game that I love to play. Like, I teach property management, and so sometimes in my class I'll bring the Monopoly games, and I'll have my students to play the monopoly game. Like in real life, it's not monopoly. It's not like, having one good month, right? Because one good month doesn't build trust. One good month doesn't rebuild trust. And let me also just say this: one bad month doesn't destroy it at all, because things happen, right? And I hear often, I don't know if you've heard it, but I hear often the young people, they say, oh, life just be lifing. Listen, patterns tells the truth. And so people will always look at patterns. People will look at behavior because it predicts based off of past events what the present and what the future will look like. And so understand that systems, I see your comment coming in. Thank you. Systems protect both landlords and tenants. Rent is due the same way every time, whether it's by cashier's check, by money order, by personal check, online. Some housing providers use payslip, where this allows tenants to print a document, take it to like 7-Eleven and some other places where the tenants can actually make the payment, right? Like there are so many options, PayPal, and what are some other ways that you allow tenants to pay rent? Zelle. What else do you use? What are some other options that you, as a landlord, allow tenants to pay you? Cash App. What else? Right. At the end of the day, the method that the rent payment is made available for you, for tenants, it's the same every time. It doesn't change, right? What about maintenance requests? Maintenance requests goes through the same channel, whether it's text, whether it's through the online portal, whether it's by way of the email, it's the same thing. Or what about notices, right? Notices are delivered the same way and should be done consistently. That's what having a system looks like. Decisions are documented. They're not just pulled down out of the air like at any given moment, right? And see, when you have systems in place, that means that I see your comment. Thank you so much. Less arguing. You have less emotion. And you have fewer surprises when you have systems in place. Listen, systems are not code, and I get it. Sometimes people don't understand, right? I promise you that I am one of the nicest housing providers on this side of heaven. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. But as nice as I am, as professional as I am, and although I strongly believe that you can catch more bees with honey than you can with vinegar, I'm also stern because I understand structure, I understand systems, and sometimes I can nicely be stern in a professional way so that tenants understand, listen, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I get it. I understand, that you've had a situation, but this is not the first time. And please also know that the bills must be paid. And so if you pay your rent late, please know that you will be charged a late fee. If the rent is paid after, and I'll give them a due date, right? Because in some communities, it may be the 5th of the month. In other communities, it may be the 10th of the month, right? I'm going to tell them what's already in writing. I'm going to reiterate what the lease agreement is. I'm not changing, I'm not deviating from it. I'm not browbeating them, but I'm also going to remind them, listen, I do apologize that, you're having this situation. Unfortunately, I am not able to change the terms of the lease agreement, right? Because I want them to understand it's in writing. It's clear, it's concise, and that's part of the system, right? And so this is what real protection looks like when you have a system in place. And I talked about silence, right? that doesn't go away. I promise that silence usually will always escalate problems and not solve them. So I had a tenant who, and I'm gonna come back to your comments in one second. I promise I am. I had a tenant who waited. They waited an extremely long time to let the owner know that there was a leak, and the leak had been going on for so long that um, the the cabinet, not just the cabinet, but the base, the floor, all the wood was just destroyed. So the owner called me in to try to help out because they were frazzled. They just didn't know what to do, right? They tried to make arrangements to get in. The tenant would never allow them to get in. And so they finally reached out, and this was some years ago. They finally reached out to me for some help. I was able to go in, assist the owner with this tenant, and it was so bad that not only did that water damage the cabinet, the base, the floors, there had been a leak for so long, true story, that the wood was just completely rotten, and you can practically almost see, and this was a basement apartment, you could practically almost see the ground because it had leaked for so long. And so to me, that denoted that it had been leaking for years. But see, this is what happens when you have issues and there is silence. It's like just dead silence. So let me just pause here for those of you who are tenants, because I know I get viewers who are not um, landlords and housing providers, right? And so for those of you who are tenants and you know when things are going on in your rental home, whether it's an apartment, whether it's a house, doesn't matter. It could be a condo. Whenever you have an issue, report it to your landlord. So for instance, an issue as simple as, I'm going to use a smoke detector. If you hear a smoke detector chirping or beeping, that usually is an indicator that something is wrong. Now, I'm not talking about like a loud going off where you use it and just ringing loud. I'm just talking about like just a chirp here and there. That's an indication that something is going on. Maybe the battery might need to be replaced. And I would much rather you tune in each week, hear my tips, hear my advice, listen to what I'm saying, and begin to do things a little bit differently. Because in a situation where what you think is something as small as, oh, it's just my smoke detector, it's just chirping, it's just beeping, right? And over time, you just kind of drown it out because you're used to the noise. That may mean, like I said, the battery should be replaced. And let's say, for instance, there is an actual fire. And because you didn't let your landlord know that the battery or that the smoke detector had been chirping, the battery died. Worst case scenario, a fire breaks out, the battery is dead, and does not alert you when you're asleep that there is a fire in your rental home. You see where I'm going with this? And so just something so small can escalate to something really, really huge. So it's always good, Mr. and Mrs. Tenant, to report whatever the issue is or whatever the issues are. If you see a roach, say something. If you see a mouse, say something. If, let's say, the toilet is running, say something. These problems are not going to go away on its own. I promise you. Okay, let me move on. Um, you get exactly what I'm saying, right? So let me talk about the landlord, right? Because again, I like to go straight down the middle of the aisle here. A landlord who avoids addressing lease violation, hoping that things will stop, that's usually bad for business. So I have begun to implement this if you see something, say something campaign. I get that many of you do have a heart, as I do. And again, I'm probably one of the nicer ones on this side of heaven. Okay. All right. But if you don't address it, it's only sending a message that it is okay. And just because you don't say anything to your tenant because maybe you don't want to ruffle their feather, you don't want any type of confrontation, I get it. But a lease violation is a lease violation. And if you tuned in a little earlier, Nancy, one of Nancy's comments was housing providers who don't keep it professional. You are always the professional. And yes, I get it. Sometimes it is uncomfortable to have conversations with people who do not look like you. For some of you, it's uncomfortable to have conversations with people who uh, don't have your background and don't have your understanding. It is a business. It is always in your best interest to learn how to communicate. When you see something, you say something. Okay, so I'm going to pause. Let me come back to my comment section because I have quite a few comments. I see your comment, Nancy. Thank you so much. You said you have your pen and paper ready. You're ready, ready. Thank you so much for that. Okay, you said, my landlord wants to buy me out of my apartment lease. Should I take the money and go? That's a great question. So let me pause and address that because now I don't know the situation. And sometimes what landlords and housing providers would do is they would do a cash for keys deal. So I don't know what your options are. I don't know why your landlord is requesting to recover possession of the rental property. I don't know if they are trying to move back into it. Like I don't know what the dynamics are, right, to answer that for you. Um, if it's a situation, and I'm not asking you to put this in the comment section, Nancy, I'm not asking to share your personal information. But let me just tell you that sometimes housing providers will do that because maybe, like I said, they may want to, if it's a house, right? Maybe they want to move back into it, right? There are lots of reasons why landlords would do a cash for keys deal. Now, if it's in your best interest, then maybe it's something to explore, especially if there is some sort of friction or perhaps there hasn't been this great history between you and the landlord. If it's in your best interest to move on, maybe you could consider that, right? But that's not a bad thing, especially if it's a situation where you know you're thinking about leaving, maybe consider that the landlord is trying to help you get to your next. But again, I don't have the backdrop to go any deeper in that. So, but thank you for that question. You said you are not a fan of landlords that want to be friendly. Well, I mean, it could go 50-50, but even if they are friendly, they should definitely keep it professional. All right, the only time I visit the rental office at my apartment complex is to ask questions about anything I don't understand concerning the lease. Now, that's good. I like that. Now, let me go back to that because that could be good, but then that could be bad. Let me play devil's advocate here. Now, we don't know Nancy Wilson's situation, and I'm not asking her to share it. But I like to play devil's advocate. So let me go nice, and then I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna go really bad. So the nice side. Nancy says the only time she visit the rent office when there is something she doesn't understand concerning her lease. Now, maybe everything is good, and that's the only time that she needs to feel, she needs to feel, or she feels like she needs to go to the office, right? But then let me just go worst case scenario. Worst case scenario is a situation where the landlords, her landlord is just the worst. Don't fix anything. don't communicate, don't keep their word, all these broken promises, right? And she feels like the only time that she can go is when she is trying to understand, like, okay, what's happening? Because my lease says I should be getting pest control services. My lease says I should be getting a response to my email when I'm trying to report maintenance complaints. And so that could be good, that could be bad. But thank you for that. All right, you said I visited the rental office last year and asked to be transferred to another unit, and I was told that there were no empty units. Here's the thing, there are a lot of empty units. Now, that sounds like trouble, Nancy. If you're still on, I would strongly encourage and recommend that you reach out to, I don't know where you live, like what jurisdiction, but I would strongly recommend that you explore um, if you have some sort of housing advocacy organization, if you can communicate with a landlord and tenant attorney who could assist you with that, because there may be more to this, right? Are they telling you that they don't have units because they're discriminating? Are they telling you that they don't have units because you are participating in some sort of housing program? Are they telling you this because you owe rent? Like there could be valid reasons, right? Then there could be some issues there. So I would recommend that you reach out to someone who can look into this a little bit deeper for you. Okay, you said, I have a piece of paper from the rental office that says if you want to transfer to another unit, when your lease is up, we can transfer you if you don't have any back rent owed. Okay, all right. Thank you so much. So, Nancy, I'm going to come back to your comment. Hello, Anthony Motley. You said cash. You accept cash. Wait a minute. Now, are you saying that's an option in terms of tenants paying their rent cash? Okay. All right, that's a joke. I know he doesn't do that. You said it's the process. I like this comment. You said encourage them to do 10% of their rent into an arrears fund for them in times of need that they could use. I like that, and absolutely. Okay, so let me keep going here. I have a little bit more to share, and then I'm going to wrap up for today. And if you're joining me for the first time, if you're joining a little late, welcome to the party. All right, so we talked about systems, we talked about effectively communicating, we talked about how silence does not solve the problem. But now let me just go a little bit deeper, because um, documentation is not distrust, it is actually professionalism. One of the things that you've always heard me say, if you've ever been tuned in consistently over the weeks, over the months, over the years, is documentation beats conversation any day, right? Someone can say, oh, I never got that notice, or that's not what we agreed to. Because, see, here's the thing, if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. If it's not in writing, it never happened, because someone could remember things very differently than you. So that's why you always want to make sure that it is in writing. You want to make sure that you not only document, or that you have the documentation, but you want to make sure that you are maintaining and keeping those records. Because here's the thing, disputes become personal instead of factual, right? And so documentation, it communicates protection. That's all it is. It's not about mistrust. It's actually about accuracy. See, housing decisions should never depend on who remembers. I'm going to repeat that. Housing decisions, I see your comment. Thank you. Should never depend on who remembers better. That's bad for business. Because I promise, at the end of the day, when it comes to housing, you need to have systems in place, you need to have structure in place, because housing stability is a shared responsibility. Ultimately, as a housing provider, as a landlord, you manage the asset. Tenants are responsible for managing the rental home, They also are responsible for managing their obligations as well. But collectively, both landlords and tenants should manage communication because when this happens, there's always a better outcome for everyone. All right, so listen, I shared a lot today because I want you to know and always remember that in housing, emotions can change, but systems, that's what keep people housed. Systems keep your rental property business going. Okay. So I'm glad that you tuned in today. Please make sure that you show up each and every week. Listen, this is what I do each and every Monday. I'm right here every Monday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You can always catch the replay again if you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel. Please make sure that you do that. Find me there at Landlord Life. Landlord is spelled with a Y. And again, this channel is all about education. It is where education meets real housing experience. But before I go, I do have just one truth or trash for today. All right. Just one. I love truth or trash. I typically give a few, but because I held your time and some of your attention for this long, I'm only going to provide just one truth or trash today. So I'm going to say a statement and you decide if it's truth or if it's trash. Okay. So here is my truth or trash for today. I'm going to repeat it. I'm going to say it twice. As long as we communicate when there's a problem, everything will work out. If you agree, type truth. If you disagree, type trash. Let me repeat it. As long as we communicate when there's a problem, everything will work out. All right, so let me see your comments. In the comment section, type truth or trash. What do you say? I'll wait a few seconds. Yes, I'll repeat it. Thank you so much for that. As long as we communicate when there's a problem, everything will work out. Okay, I see your comment. That's trash. Here's why that's trash because waiting until there's a problem means that communication already failed. Ultimately, and at the end of the day, effective communication, it happens before the issue, not after the damage. So remember, I talked about the issue with a leaking, something leaking in the kitchen, right? A leaking pipe, right? A water issue. And that water issue was not conveyed or communicated to the landlord, to the owner. And it had gone on for so long, for years, that not only did it destroy the cabinet, the base, and the floor, um, but even the subfloor was damaged. And so, because there was no communication, something as simple as maybe a washer for the faucet ended up costing thousands of dollars. So, just because you communicate does not mean that everything will work out. So, that's why that's trash. All right. Thank you for that. All right. Listen, everybody, my time is up and I absolutely thank you for yours. Listen, housing works best when expectations are louder than emotions. We saw in the comment section a little earlier how important it is for landlords and housing professionals to maintain their professionalism. So, whether you are a landlord, whether you are a tenant, understand that it's important to build systems. It's important to communicate early. It's important to stay consistent. And it's also important to document everything because trust isn't emotional, it's operational. All right. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I know that some are going to watch the replay. Thank you for watching the replay. And if you have questions, comments, remarks, or observations, even when I am offline, please make sure that you drop it in the comment section. I will respond. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Listen, it has been a fantastic pleasure having you today. I'll see you all next Monday for another episode of Landlord and Tenant Talk Live with me. All right. Thank you so much for that red carpet. I'm sorry. I saw your comment. I forgot to post it. You said trash. Absolutely. All right, you all. I'll see you next week. Be great. Be amazing. And again, if you found this information, helpful, please like, please tag, please share it with someone else. I'll see you all next Monday right here. Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn.